They called me a burden, a drain on their lives, a weight I didn't deserve to carry. But nothing hit harder than the day they told me I had to leave my own house. "You don't belong here anymore," my daughter-in-law shouted, her voice sharp like a knife. My son just stood there, silent, eyes cast down like he couldn't face me. I never imagined my own family would turn on me like this. That house, my sanctuary for over 30 years, was suddenly a battleground. The place where my late wife and I built memories, raised our children, and hoped for peaceful old age was now a prison. They said it was for their own good, that I was causing problems, that I was in the way. But what they really wanted was the property, the $5 million estate that suddenly made me a target. I remember the day the lawyer called me with a strange tone, almost hesitant. "There's something you should know about the will," he said, and my heart stopped. All along, I thought I understood my family's intentions, but behind closed doors, they were spinning lies about inheritance, about what belonged to whom. I was blind to their greed. Now, as I sit here telling this story, I realize how quickly love can turn into betrayal. How the people you trust most can become strangers overnight, and how sometimes the fight to protect what's yours means standing up not just to the world, but to your own blood. What happened next? Well, that's where things got even more complicated. Because in this family drama, nothing is ever as it seems. Stay with me, because this story isn't just about money. It's about respect, betrayal, and finally, reclaiming my life. Let me tell you about the family I once thought I knew, because knowing who they really are changed everything. There's my son, James. He was always my pride and joy, the boy I raised with dreams of a good life. Quiet, soft, spoken, but with a streak of stubbornness. The kind of man you want in your corner, or so I believed. Then there's his wife, Rachel. From the beginning, she didn't quite fit into our family the way I hoped. She was flashy, always talking about what she deserved, and didn't hide her impatience with me or my late wife's memory. At family dinners, she'd make little jokes, harmless at first, but the kind that cut deep if you really listened. My daughter-in-law's family wasn't much better. Her mother, a sharp woman with a sharp tongue, had her own ideas about what our family should be. Her visits were tense, filled with thinly veiled insults and judgmental looks. They all seemed to circle around the property like vultures, waiting for a chance. Of course, I had friends, old, loyal people who'd known me for years. They saw the cracks forming long before I did. I spoke to my lawyer, Mr. Green, who had been our family's trusted advisor for decades. He was the one who tried to warn me that things might not be as simple as they seemed. "Keep your eyes open," he said. "People change when money is involved." Despite all that, I wanted to believe in my family. I wanted to think James and Rachel loved me, that they'd never try to hurt me. But the cold looks, the whispered conversations when I wasn't around, the sudden insistence that I sign papers, it all told a different story. This wasn't just about money, it was about control, about pushing me out so they could have it all. But what they didn't realize was that I wasn't going down without a fight. The tension was building, and little did I know, the worst was yet to come. It started small, harmless enough that I brushed it off. Little things that slowly chipped away at the respect I once had. Rachel would forget to include me in family plans, or make snide comments about my age and how times have changed. James, once warm and caring, grew distant, often siding with his wife in their quiet judgments. Then came the papers. One afternoon, Rachel handed me a thick envelope with a forced smile. "We just want to sort out the property officially," she said, but I could feel the tension beneath her words. "It's easier if you just sign these." I looked down at the documents and my heart sank. They were legal forms, some transferring rights, some disclaiming claims. I couldn't read all the fine print, but something felt wrong. "Why now?" I asked. "Why do I have to sign this?" James shrugged, looking anywhere but at me. "It's just paperwork, Dad. You don't need to worry." But I did worry. Something in my gut told me this wasn't about paperwork. It was about pushing me out. When I hesitated, Rachel's smile disappeared. "If you don't sign, we'll have to take legal action," she said coldly. The warmth in the room vanished, replaced by a chill I'd never felt before. Days later, I overheard them talking. Rachel whispered to James, "He's stubborn. But once the papers are signed, this will be over." James nodded, eyes hollow. I tried talking to James. "Son, what's going on? This isn't how family should treat each other." He looked away, voice low. "I'm just doing what I have to do. It's complicated. Complicated to me, it was betrayal. I reached out to Mr. Green, our lawyer, explaining what was happening. His voice was grave when he warned me. They're trying to take control, step by step. Be very careful before signing anything. But the pressure didn't stop. Family gatherings became battles of silence and sharp glances. They mocked me behind my back, calling me old and useless, acting like I was the problem. I felt trapped in my own home. One night, as I sat alone in the living room, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Rachel. Sign the papers, or you leave, your choice. Those words cut deeper than any argument. My own family was giving me an ultimatum. Sign away my rights or become homeless. I stared at the ceiling, wondering how it came to this, how the people I loved could turn on me so completely, but I wasn't ready to give up. Not yet. What happened next? The truth about the will was about to turn everything upside down. The pressure to sign those papers didn't ease. It only grew heavier with every passing day. James and Rachel weren't subtle anymore. They showed up unannounced, corners of their smiles sharp with impatience. Rachel's tone grew colder, almost threatening. Just sign, Dad. You know it's easier this way. But what was easier for them was a trap for me. I started to dig deeper, asking questions with Mr. Green on the phone. He told me the documents they wanted me to sign could strip me of my rights to the house and property completely. It felt like they were trying to erase me, make me invisible in the story of my own life. One afternoon, Rachel cornered me in the kitchen. "You don't want to cause trouble," she said, voice low but sharp. "We're trying to keep the family together, but if you don't sign, things get ugly." Her words echoed the threat from her message. The ultimatum was real. I could see James standing nearby, conflicted but silent. He didn't say a word to defend me. It was like he was lost somewhere between loyalty to his wife and to his father. That night, I sat down and stared at the papers again. My hands trembled as I thought about what signing them would mean, losing my home, my security, my dignity. I called Mr. Green, desperate. "Is there any way out of this? Can they do this to me?" He sighed. "Legally, they might try, but you have rights, and there's a will. A last will and testament that might protect you. Why haven't I seen it?" I asked. Sometimes families keep things hidden until the right moment. You have to be careful and prepared. That call gave me hope and fear, because if they were hiding something, it meant they were planning more than just to push me out. They were ready to take everything, and I was running out of time. What they didn't know was that I wasn't alone in this fight. And soon, the truth would come to light in the most unexpected way. I remember the day I first heard whispers about a secret will. It came from an old family friend who'd been close to my late wife. At first, I didn't want to believe it. Why hide a will? Why keep something so important from me? But as the days passed, the pieces started to fall into place. James and Rachel had been lying, not just to me, but to everyone else. They told family members the will left everything to them, that I was cut out. They spun stories about me being incapable, irresponsible, even dangerous to the estate. When I confronted James, his eyes darted away. "Dad, we're just trying to protect the family's future," he said. "You wouldn't understand. Try me." I snapped, but he refused to explain, and Rachel, when pressed, would only give that cold smile and say, "It's best if you leave this to the lawyers." That's when I decided to do what I should have done earlier, talk to Mr. Green face to face. In his office, he pulled out an old, dusty file. "This," he said, "is your wife's final will. It was updated 5 years ago, and it names you as the primary beneficiary." I couldn't believe it. 5 years and no one had told me. Why? Because greed blinds people. It makes them forget what's right. The will included the house, the savings, even some investments that no one knew about. James and Rachel's claims were lies, meant to pressure me into signing those papers without reading the fine print. I felt anger rising inside me, but also sadness that my own son could be part of such a scheme. When I brought the will up at a family dinner, the room went silent. Rachel's face twisted into a sneer, and James avoided my gaze. "Where did you get that?" Rachel demanded. "I got it from the lawyer," I said firmly. This changes everything. They tried to laugh it off, but the tension was thick. It was clear they had been counting on me never finding out, but the story wasn't over yet. The real shock came with the property deed and a letter that would change everything. After discovering the truth about the will, I knew I had to be careful. James and Rachel were dangerous now, not just angry, but desperate. I couldn't trust anyone in the family anymore. That's when I started meeting with Mr. Green in secret. He told me the battle wasn't over. "They'll fight you for every inch," he said. "You have to be smart, document everything, don't sign anything without me." We went over every detail, the will, the property deeds, the legal loopholes. Mr. Green explained that the house was legally mine, but only if I stood my ground. "They can't just kick you out," he said. "Not without a court order, and that takes time." Those secret meetings became my lifeline. I felt like I was waking up from a nightmare, finally seeing the truth clearly. But I also felt fear. Fear that the people I once loved were trying to steal everything from me. One day, Mr. Green handed me a letter he'd received from Rachel's lawyer. It was full of threats, trying to bully me into signing over the house. "If you don't cooperate, we'll file eviction papers," it said coldly. I looked at that letter and felt a surge of strength. No more hiding. No more fear, but I knew the hardest part was yet to come. Facing them, standing up to my own son and daughter-in-law. The next steps would decide everything. My home, my dignity, my family, what happens next. The secret will, the property deed, and the lawyer's shocking letter all set the stage for the biggest confrontation of my life. The day I finally held the secret will in my hands was one I'll never forget. It felt like clutching a lifeline in a storm-proof, that I hadn't been forgotten, that my late wife had planned to protect me all along. Mr. Green called me into his office, a solemn look on his face. "This is the updated will your wife made 5 years ago," he said, sliding a thick envelope across the table. "It names you as the primary beneficiary of the house and the bulk of the estate." I traced the pages with trembling fingers. There were my wife's neat signatures, her clear instructions. For years, James and Rachel had hidden this from me, twisting the truth to push me aside. "Why keep it a secret?" I asked quietly. Mr. Green sighed. "It's common in inheritance disputes. Sometimes families want to control the narrative. They try to keep others in the dark." I felt a wave of betrayal wash over me. My son, the boy I raised, had been part of this deception. But more than anger, I felt determination. This was my chance to reclaim what was rightfully mine. As I left the office, clutching the will close, I knew I had to prepare. The family wouldn't give up easily. Rachel's cold threats and James's silence had shown me that much. But this will was more than just a piece of paper. It was my truth, and with it, I was ready to fight back. The next step was understanding the property deed, who truly owned the house, and that's where things got even more complicated. Holding the will was one thing, but the real power lay in the property deed. Mr. Green warned me that this document would show exactly who legally owned the house, and it was the key to stopping them from pushing me out. When I finally got a copy of the deed, my heart pounded. The ink on that paper would decide if I had a home, or if I was just a guest in my own life. To my relief, the deed was in my name, not theirs. That meant the house was legally mine, something I clung to with desperate hope. But as Mr. Green explained, owning the deed was only half the battle. "You need to be ready for a fight," he said. "They might try to challenge this in court, but you have the strongest claim." Still, I couldn't ignore the cold reality. James and Rachel had been acting like owners for months. Changing locks, talking to contractors, making decisions without me. It felt like a slow robbery, piece by piece. One day, I caught James in the backyard, yelling at a worker. "Make those repairs now," he ordered. When he saw me watching, his face hardened. "This is my house now," he snapped. His words stung worse than any insult. But now, armed with the deed and the will, I knew I had the law on my side. They could try to bully me, but I wasn't backing down. Just then, a letter arrived from Rachel's lawyer. It was cold, threatening legal action if I didn't surrender the property immediately. I read it twice, feeling both anger and resolve. This was war. The stakes were higher than ever. Next, the shocking lawyer's letter would force me to make a choice: fight or walk away. A few days after I got the deed, the letter arrived. It wasn't just any letter. It was from Rachel's lawyer, full of cold, hard threats. They wanted me out, now. They claimed I was trespassing on my own property and warned that if I didn't vacate immediately, they'd file eviction papers. I read the words over and over, unable to believe my eyes. How could they treat me like this? Me, the man who had built that house, who had cared for this family for decades, being told to leave by my own son and daughter-in-law. The letter said, sign the necessary documents transferring ownership, or face legal consequences. It was a trap, plain and simple. My hands shook as I called Mr. Green. What do? I asked. He was calm but firm. Don't respond. Not yet. This is their way of trying to scare you into signing. We'll fight this. You have the law and the will on your side. But fear crept in. I knew they were capable of following through, calling the police, changing locks, making me homeless. That night, I sat in the quiet house, the walls seeming to close in on me. I thought of my late wife, of the life we built here. And I promised myself I wouldn't give up. Not to threats, not to betrayal. I knew the battle ahead wouldn't be easy. It would cost me my peace, maybe even my relationship with James. But I had to fight. Not just for the house, but for my dignity. The showdown was coming. Would I stand my ground or lose everything to those who once called me family? The day I changed the locks felt like reclaiming my soul. After weeks of feeling powerless in my own home, I finally took back control. I called a locksmith, and while James and Rachel were out, I had the locks replaced. No more surprise visits, no more threats of eviction. I remember the moment the new keys slid into my hand. The weight of them felt heavier than metal. It was a small victory, but to me it was everything. The house was mine, and I was going to protect it. But when James and Rachel returned and found themselves locked out, the real storm began. They banged on the door, shouting my name, accusing me of betrayal. Rachel screamed, "You don't own this anymore. We're the ones running things." James looked torn, pleading quietly, "Dad, please, don't make this harder than it has to be." I wanted to believe him, but his silence when Rachel crossed the line told me everything. They thought I was weak, ready to back down. That night, the shouting continued outside. My neighbors heard it, some came to check. It was humiliating, but I refused to open that door until they apologized. Little did I know this act of standing up would change everything, but it also set the stage for a heartbreaking confrontation. After the lock change, everything fell apart. The house was quiet, but the family was fractured beyond repair. James stopped coming by altogether. Rachel avoided the neighborhood, and their calls went unanswered. One afternoon, I got a surprising phone call from James himself. His voice was shaky, almost pleading. "Dad, I didn't realize how much Rachel was manipulating me." He said, "I'm sorry, I want to make things right." Part of me wanted to forgive him, to believe my son had come back to his senses, but the wounds were deep and the betrayal cut too close. Rachel, on the other hand, remained distant. She never apologized, never admitted fault. Her coldness was a wall I couldn't break through. Friends and neighbors started to ask questions. Some offered support, others whispered gossip. The family drama was no longer private. It was out in the open. But through it all, I found strength in unexpected places. I leaned on old friends, on Mr. Green's steady guidance, and most importantly, on myself. I began to rebuild piece by piece. Just when I thought I was healing, a surprise came. A message from my daughter, trying to bridge the gap, but would I let her back in? The knock at the door was soft but determined. It was my daughter, Sarah, James's younger sister, someone I hadn't seen in months. She looked nervous, eyes filled with regret. "Dad, I need to talk," she said quietly. I hesitated. The past months had been so painful. Could I risk opening that door? But the hope for family pulled me in. She sat down, voice shaking. "I'm sorry for everything. I should have stood up sooner. Rachel, she changed James. I didn't realize how bad it was." I looked at her and saw my own pain mirrored back. "Why now?" I asked. "Because you're all I have left," she whispered, "and I don't want to lose you." It was the moment I'd been waiting for, the chance to rebuild, to heal, but I had to set boundaries. Respect matters more than money, Sarah. I told her, if we're going to fix this, things have to change. She nodded, tears in her eyes. I understand. As we talked, I realized this wasn't just about inheritance or property. It was about trust, love, and respect, the real treasures in life. And so I chose to forgive but never forget, because respect matters more than money, and now they know it too. That's the story. A story of betrayal, heartbreak, but also hope. Thank you for listening. Healing from betrayal wasn't easy. The pain ran deep, and for a long time I carried a heavy weight on my chest every morning. I kept replaying their words, their actions, the way they pushed me out like I was nothing. But with time, I began to see things differently. I learned that healing isn't about forgetting or pretending it didn't hurt. It's about accepting what happened and choosing to grow beyond it. I started focusing on myself, my health, my passions, the things that gave me peace. I reconnected with old friends who reminded me of who I was before the chaos. I found strength in small victories, like waking up without dread or smiling at the sunset without feeling alone. Most importantly, I realized that betrayal, as painful as it is, taught me valuable lessons. About resilience, about boundaries, about never letting anyone make me feel less than I am. This was not the end of my story, it was the beginning of a new chapter. One where I stood tall, proud, and free. Looking back, I see now that the money and property were never the real battle. The true fight was for respect that was stripped away by those I loved most. It's easy to get lost in dollars and deeds, but what really matters is how we treat each other. I learned that family isn't just about blood or inheritance. It's about trust, kindness, and standing by each other in hard times. When those things vanish, money can't fill the void. I also learned that sometimes the people who hurt us the most are the ones we care about deeply. But forgiveness isn't about letting them off the hook. It's about freeing ourselves from the pain they caused. And most of all, I learned that strength comes not from possessions, but from knowing your worth, from standing firm, even when the world seems against you. These lessons have shaped who I am today, a person who values respect over riches, love over greed, and truth over silence. If there's one thing I want you to take away from my story, it's this: respect matters more than money. A fortune means nothing if the people around you see you as a burden, if love turns to greed and family becomes strangers. I lived through betrayal that cut deeper than any wound. But in the end, it wasn't the inheritance or the property that saved me. It was standing up for myself, refusing to be silenced, and demanding the respect I deserved. Money can build houses, buy cars, and pay bills, but it can't buy dignity or heal a broken heart. When I reclaimed my home, I reclaimed my voice, and that made all the difference. So if you're facing your own battles, whether with family or anyone else, remember this: never let anyone make you feel less than you are. Stand your ground, speak your truth, and hold on to your self-worth, because at the end of the day, respect matters more than money, and now they know it too. Thank you for listening to my story.